The first important element would be that the policies have been homegrown, and Ethiopia has been unique in a way, following its own locally designed development paths and homegrown economic policies. This is quite important because prescriptions are not going to be uniformly applied to various countries, because every context, historical, cultural, political, economy differs, and the understanding of the local context is quite important. And an additional aspect is that policies should be owned. What matters in policy is not writing a policy or endorsing a policy. The biggest challenge is in making sure that policies are practiced and outcome also is delivered. So in this respect, the homegrown policy element is quite critical. A second lesson that we could learn from Ethiopia's experience is the long-term perspective. You cannot build infrastructure with short-term perspective. If you look at hydropower, the gestation period is close to more than 10 years. You have to do studies, geological surveys, then you have to mobilize finance, you have to do procurement, construction. So it requires longer-term perspective. Human capital requires long-term perspective as well. You have to invest in curriculum, in courses, in teacher development. A lot of interventions are required. So Ethiopia in this respect, by focusing on infrastructure and human capital, long-term perspective has been quite important. The third element is a focus on productive capacity. And in 1991, the economy was a stagnated economy. For 17 years during the rule of the military regime, the economy was growing at 0%. So the economy was stagnant, and it was basically a war economy. And the first focus of the government, and it was also a command economy. So the first 5 years or a decade was focused on shifting to market-led economy, from command and centrally planned economy, and also from war footing to peaceful economy, and a recovery program was required, and new constitution has to be developed. So that was an important element. Then the economic growth was primarily driven by agriculture. Ethiopia followed that agriculture should be the lead, and the main reason was that agriculture was important for economic takeoff. And from the very beginning, the government knew that agriculture is not going to be the lead for many decades. And the rough estimation was that within a period of 20 years, Ethiopia needs to shift to a new model that is guided by manufacturing. So since the Growth and Transformation Plan, which was initiated in 2011, the focus shifted towards building industrial capability. And in this respect, I would say it's an early stage, but there are some good signs that this is the pathway for the future. Another key element that need to be emphasized is being a learner. I mean, if you look at Japanese were quite best students in terms of learning. So if you look at the history of Japan during the Meiji Restoration in the 1960s until the beginning of 20th century, ministers were traveling to Europe, to UK, to learn from Europe. And at that time it took 2 years, 3 years for them to travel by sea and also to learn. And this was done in a very rigorous way. They brought many engineers from UK who were expert in railway, and Japan was able to build world-class railway systems from the early stage. So being the best student was for them a key element. In the manufacturing process, the quality system of Japan is well known. However, this system was originally initiated in the US. They picked from the US in the 50s, 60s, and they used for their own production system, which means they have been best at learning. Same thing with China. China has been a very good student. They learned from Japanese, they learned from Europe, and when you try to learn from others, what happens is you compare where you are. You know that whether you are lagging or not. So it gives you a drive to make significant improvement. It also gives you light on how best to manage the process, although you will not be copying as it is. So in our Ethiopian experience, Ethiopia has been looking at East Asian model, not to copy it, replicate it, but to learn how they were able to do this rapid economic growth and economic transformation. And in many sectors also, we had to look at good models. For instance, our university and technical and vocational education system, we basically looked at many alternatives, and we found out the German system is more suitable for us. And we basically looked at the German system, the apprenticeship system, which they have developed for more than a century, and we brought many German experts, about 500, to assist us in this reform. So for us, the German system was quite important. On the aviation industry, we basically used the US aviation as a benchmark. So Ethiopian Airlines, the civil aviation authorities, all were built on the US system. In industrial parks or special economic zones, we try to take lessons from Singapore, from South Korea, Vietnam, China, and now we have a system whereby we have used a lot of learning from these countries, but it's not copying. We came up with our own unique solution. So while you need homegrown policies, it has to be linked with pragmatism, long-term view, as well as learning from others as well. Yeah, the first thing at conceptual level or theoretical level, there are many evidence globally that performance is not linked to ownership. Because if you say private sector ownership is better than state-owned intervention, then it means that private airlines will not fail, while state-owned airlines will go bankrupt. The fact shows that many private airlines have gone out of business, including TWA, which was a company that partnered with Ethiopian Airlines. And Ethiopian Airlines is 100% government owned. But the way the government manages Ethiopian Airlines is different. The key aspect here is the government should be disciplined even if it's going to have ownership of companies, which means the corporate governance has to be world class. There must be competition. They should not be insulated from competition, because competition is a driver of a better performance as well, because you could easily look that companies who are not performing well will go out of business, and those who succeed will be expanding. So one key issue is at both empirical evidence and theoretical facts show that ownership is not directly related to performance. When we relate this with the recent changes that the Ethiopian government has been introducing, the reforms, these are directly related on revitalizing the economy. The telecom business has been a monopoly. We have Ethio Telecom, which is a monopoly. And the main reason why the government had a monopoly of this Ethio Telecom was not basically because the government saw this sector should be closed. That was not the case. The main justification was the telecom business is a cash cow. It brings a lot of money. So the government has been using the money generated from Ethio Telecom to build railway lines. So it was mainly the financial benefit. The performance of this telecom company was not what the government desires to happen. The quality of service is poor, and the prices were not falling fast because it's a monopoly, no competition. And this is a very fast changing industry. The technology innovation is changing. Now, within a period of 2 decades, the telecom system is now shifting to 5G telecom systems. So the key challenge will be, how do you ensure the company moves with new technologies, adjusts? So the key justification here is that you need a partner, not who has a deep pocket, but mainly the technology, and leading industrial players should be linked with our telecom industry. So the privatization process includes 2 elements. One element is the state-owned telecom system will be restructured, and there will be a joint venture in terms of ownership, up to 49% by international companies. The second aspect is the government does not have the intention of changing government monopoly by private sector monopoly. So if we only privatize up to 49% and then we wait, things are not going to happen. So you need to have 3 or 4 major service providers. So because there must be a competition. And in this respect, the government is establishing a new regulatory body, a new regulation on how to manage this competition. So this is an example in the reform process. On the logistics, the main reason was, without a world-class logistics, you cannot have a growing or thriving manufacturing sector, or even a growing and thriving export sector. So the logistics cost in Ethiopia has been, in many cases, between 20 to 30% of the costs of companies, and it has been a contributor in undermining the performance of companies. So this needed to change, and for this purpose, the opening of the logistics sector involves that international logistics companies can invest in this sector up to 49% joint venture. So this has been the basic approach. Like with Ethiopian Airlines have a world-class management, and it has been continuously upgrading technology. So the rationale is not like Ethio Telecom. The rationale is here, we need new money to flow in so that Ethiopian Airlines can grow faster. In a decade or decade and a half, the fleet can grow to 250 or 300 aircraft, and its ranking will improve to top 20 global companies. So the rationale is completely different. Not here we have a good management, good corporate governance, a good technological capability, initiatives, but we have to infuse with more money. So here the issue is not ideological, it's to look at the practical constraints and to find a practical solution to challenges we face.